Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week, I'm chatting with the singer-songwriter Conner Cherland. Now, Connor's got a new EP out, and it's called The Choices of John Still, so he reached out to me, asked if I'd be interested in chatting to him on the podcast. I looked up his music, thought it was pretty great, so I was like, yeah, I'd be happy to have a chat with him, and here we are. So in this chat, we obviously talk about his new release and what it was like making the EP, as well as the collaborations he's done with the band, The Rare Occasions. We also talk about some of his songwriting process, like he does 40 songs a year just to make a sort of 6-track EP. We talk about his touring, some of his dream collaborations, including like Mike Shinoda and Hosier, things like that, like who he'd ideally love to do some collaborations with in the future. We also talk about just other passions of his, as well as sort of some of the songwriting and live performance process, as well as the music scene and how Spotify kind of falls into it all. So it's a very good podcast for musicians and music lovers in general. We also talk about the finances of sort of being a musician and all the touring costs and that sort of thing as well. So it's a really great chat for anyone who's just into music, is interested in Conner and more of the depth of his music, or just if you're a musician and you're thinking about releasing some more music, what to do. This can be a little stepping stone for you, a little guide. Just before we get started, there's a promo coming up for the Pop Culture Nickel podcast, so be sure to check those guys out after this. And I'll be back at the end to talk about more information about upcoming episodes and a few other things. Don't forget to follow us on all the usual social media places, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys at the end.
Have you ever thought of the biggest celebrity monkeys?
Or how about the best TV resurrections?
If so, join me, Mark Rushlow,
And his lovely wife, Jeanette.
on Pop Culture Nickel, where we share random pop culture top 5 lists.
Stay fresh at popculturenickel.podbean.com and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Pop-Tart Nation awaits.
Just couldn't let me get the last word in, could you?
Nope.
Welcome to Genuine Chit Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton. I'm joined today by Conner Cherland. Funny story, Conner messaged me on Instagram and asked if I want to do a podcast, so here we are, we've arranged it. So Conner, where are you from then?
I'm from Santa Barbara, California.
Yeah, and one of the reasons you reached out to me was because you were at the time releasing new music, and is it an EP you've just released, the 6-track?
Yes. This last Friday, I had my album release show here in Santa Barbara.
Oh, wonderful! How did that go?
It was awesome. It was definitely the most successful show I had ever put on. I arranged the venue. I got the drinks, got the beer, got the bands. We ended up recording it, the whole thing. We have it on audio, we have it on video. So the whole thing is going to be available for everybody to see, which was really cool. And it was a lot to arrange, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, so regarding your EP, I want to get into it because I have been listening to it the last few days, and I think it's really good. I wanted to say that on a couple of the songs, like when you said we, obviously I assume, are you the primary sort of songwriter, or do you do all the instruments, or what's the sort of music making process?
Yeah, so I'm the main songwriter for all these songs that are on the EP, and when I'm saying we, I'm saying me plus the Rare Occasions. They were really pivotal in helping bring this album to life. They're a very good indie rock band within their own rank, so I brought them in to kind of help me fill out the full band experience, because I know how to do my part, but they know how to do their parts really well, so they could really fill in with a lot of finesse and make sure that there's enough space in the song without it being overcrowded. Yeah, man, that's a really good idea. It's like I've seen a couple of artists, like I've got quite a few friends who are either in bands who like artistic or have musical interests and things, and one of them does quite a lot of acoustic music, but he likes to often play live with like a full band. And it really does change sort of the way it can feel. Like one individual person can often be great live, but when you want like the full band, you've got everyone kind of focusing on their one thing, and it all kind of culminates together and makes for this big, brilliant sound. So I totally get that.
How long, like you released an album before this called Telltales. I couldn't see much more music than that on Spotify. Did you, how much have you been, how long have you been releasing music really, and how long have you been performing music, I guess?
My first release was in 2014. It was a EP called Wanting Man, just 6 songs, and it was the response to it was me picking my favorite 6 songs out of the first 40 I had written. It was just kind of a big experiment to see, can I write songs? If so, let's put it out on an album and see if other people like them as well.
Yeah, man,
So
totally.
yeah, so that went well, and then I did the same thing in 2000. Sorry, no, that first album came out in 2016.
Yeah.
And then in 2017, I came out with Tall Tales, and that was the result of the second 40 batch of songs that I made. And
Wow.
yeah, and then this album is another 40 songs later, but it's more packaged in a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
So it's less an experiment of can I write songs, and it's more an expression of one particular story arc that I wanted to hash out, and that's what the title track is really setting up. And the process of like when I began writing music started in like 2014.
Okay.
That's when I started to challenge myself to write 40 songs in 6 months. I'd always wanted to write songs, and it seems like there's no easy way to dip your toe in the pool, so I figured to just jump in.
That's a really, really good way of doing it. Like, it's very interesting, yeah, because it's like when you songwrite, I've heard from a lot of my friends, because I personally, I don't play any instrument or write any music because I'm not talented, but a lot of my friends, they, a couple of them are musicians in different variety of bands. Some are drummers, guitarists, singers, all kinds of things. And one of the things they've said is, they, as a band, one of my friends specifically called Callum, who's been on the podcast actually, they were a band for a while and they released an EP or two, and then they were kind of like, they didn't like it as much, and they rebranded, they changed the band name, and then released more music. And the difference, just even though obviously it's been a couple of years anyway, but the difference between the songs they're writing now compared to like a few months ago or a few years ago even, is that the quality and the strength of it is all different. They've kind of really found their niche. So I can imagine you writing 40 in such a short space of time must have been like training for a marathon almost, like that sort of just hit the ground running and just go for it, write loads of stuff. Some of it may not be as sort of top quality as other parts of it, but that's all part of the sort of writing journey. And you can only write brilliant things if you write things and you're like, you know what, I like that, but I don't like that part of it. And you can really delve deep into what sort of how you write. So what kind of triggered you? Was there anything specifically that made you, like a few years ago, specifically start songwriting, or what was sort of the catalyst?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to do it since I was a little kid, and I started journaling when I was 17, and I was reading through my journals, and I don't know why I was so hard on myself, but at 17, I would like write these journal entries. It'd be like, day 7 of writing in my journal, still haven't written a song. I don't know when I'll ever do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even know if that wasn't even a goal. Like I didn't I didn't even have that as a goal necessarily. So in 2014, I kind of got out of 2 relationships at the same time, like one after another, not like at the same time. and it was a good wake up call to me that I was continuing to date people due to this weird sense of lack inside my body. So I decided to take a break from that and really decide to focus on something different. And if I was going to focus my energies on something different, might as well be something I always wanted to do as a little kid. So that's when I really picked up the pen.
That's a good shout. I mean, not only is it probably quite a good writing inspiration for that way, but it's also good in a lot of ways, not just in relationships, but other aspects of life, to sometimes, think, okay, I need to take a breather, take a step back, kind of look introspectively, but then also just kind of, focus and then get back into it when I'm ready. A lot of people in not just relationships, but a lot of aspects of their lives, they'll just jump into something and then like burn themselves out and then jump out and go straight into something else. It's like sometimes like change can be one of the best things for the mind, and whether that's even just changing your routine or changing your creative output or things like that, it can really help. It's almost like therapy, you know. I mean, therapy is just talking to someone about your feelings. Well, you know, producing music, it's almost more raw than that. It's putting your feelings and converting it into a format other people can sort of take in. So that's a really, really cool thing to have done. So when it comes to the writing of music and things, in instruments, have you played instruments all your life, or did you kind of learn to do the songwriting? What was your sort of, or was it all on sort of a program? What was that about?
Yeah, I got my first guitar at age 10.
Nice.
I was really into Eminem, and so for some reason, like Eminem and Linkin Park, and so I was like, so I should have a guitar. Yeah.
That's a good shout. To be fair, they are fantastic bands, and Eminem, Linkin Park a little bit later for me, but Eminem was definitely one of my top when I was that age as well.
Yeah, I don't know why I decided to start with an acoustic guitar, but it's also one of the cheapest things to start off with.
Definitely.
If you want to get into music. So I learned pretty much the 4 chords, and then after that stopped for years and years until the end of high school. And that's when I realized that it was cool to know how to play the guitar. And then I started pulling that out, and I sung all the time. That was like one of the things I would do in high school, is I would go into another teacher's room with my little ukulele, and I would say like, oh, this person has a singing gram, I'm here to deliver it. And then I would just start singing to this person, even though like there was no singing gram. It was just like fun for me to pull pranks like that.
That's awesome.
And then, and then in college, I really had to, I was a part of this Christian group on the Santa Barbara campus, and their leader, their band leader kind of stepped down suddenly, and I was the only other guy that could halfway sing and halfway play guitar. So they kind of threw me in the mix and was like, all right, time to learn to swim.
Nice. Well, so with your as we spoke about a little bit earlier, I know your time is limited, so I'm going to kind of fire through some of these questions. With the EP specifically, there's a song that I liked especially, which is, if I just get that, Letters from Emily. I think that was my personal favourite. I think the harmonising that you and the female singer in that song, it really goes well together. And I was going to say, what's the sort of collaboration wise? Like, I know you mentioned about sort of band, which I've forgotten the name of, I do apologise.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
The Rare Occasions.
There you go. And obviously you did a lot of collaborating with them. What if you could have like a few big artists collaborate with you? Let's say 3. Who would be like your dream collaborations?
My dream collaboration.
Which is a hard one because I know you're into music.
Yes. Also because I'm really specific about personalities. So some of my favorite artists I might not get along with because they're like even moodier than I am, so that probably wouldn't make for a good space. The good thing about the Rare Occasions is that they're very kind, like they're very kind-hearted, they're a very no drama kind of band. So it's collaborating with them is very simple. So now I have to think about like who would be gentle and good. I'd be really interested in working with Dallas Green. He's in the band City and Color. Okay. So probably him. That's a Canadian band. Who else? I'd be very interested in working with Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park. While we're bringing him up.
Yeah, because he's got some solo album out, hasn't he? Which he released with an artist called. There's an artist called Grandson who guested on one of the tracks, and I love Grandson. I listen to him on Spotify. But yeah, Mike Shinoda, he had I think it was Fort Minor as well. He released some music with that on the side from Linkin Park. So I think he would be a really solid guy. I think he'd work quite well with your music as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Fort Minor especially. That was a fantastic album.
Yeah.
And then let's pick a third. I always say Seal.
Yeah.
Because Seal seems to have the most swagger out of the men in the world. And I would love to be near that swagger for a little bit. There are certain men that just breed confidence in you, and I feel like he'd be one of those men.
I know exactly what you sort of mean. I mean, I feel like Idris Elba. I think that he's one of those people as well, where he would just. I think obviously you walk into a room and you can feel it, sort of thing. So yeah, I totally agree. Well, they're three really good ones. I would also with your music. I don't want to label your music in a genre because it ends up typecasting it and things like that. But I do implore everyone to go check it out. It's really good. But like, if you had to describe it as a genre, what would you say it is?
Sure, I would say it's singer-songwriter at its heart. And the way that expresses itself on this album is very different. So there's like indie rock on the album. There's more like indie folk kind of stuff. And then there's just like, and then there's like a gentle lullaby at the end. So it really spans. There's a song that's almost country pop, but it's not. So I would say at its heart, though, it's singer-songwriter, and then it dresses up very differently depending on the mood I'm trying to set.
I can hear a lot of the sort of different influences that I like, and as you just mentioned there, especially a bit of indie rock in there. You know, some of the songs are more mellow, more chill, and almost more heartfelt in a sense. But then you do, in a sense, go for it. You know, it's a bit more of a sort of rocky edge to it, which is really cool. But out of interest, have you thought of delving into any other genres? Like, would you incorporate, I don't know, rap into it, for example, or rhythm and blues, or any sort of other thing? Or is this the sort of music, just out of interest, that you always want to kind of release?
Yeah, I would love to branch out into other things. I'm a huge fan of Hozier. That might actually be a dream collaboration. Because he has a voice that one, it has a lot of soul in it, and two, he doesn't manipulate his voice in a painful way. It seems like he just has good voice control and then continues to use it versus needing to go beyond your vocal range all the time. And like a lot of the screamo bands we were into when you're like in junior high, like a lot of those types of singers will abuse their voice a little bit. There's a like one of the best voices I know, Mariana's Trench, like that lead singer, he just trashes his voice for a living. And it is like very cool but sad. So it'd be cool to work with Hozier for that reason. And I would love to get into more of that like rock, blues, soul kind of space.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. Maybe that would be something for the future. I mean, the brilliance of music now with the music industry, like Spotify, for example, is I like to get your opinion on Spotify in a moment, actually, but with it, there's a lot more artists that are releasing more EPs regularly and a lot of singles and a lot of EPs rather than, say, a 2-year album cycle. So there's quite a lot of space for a lot of bands that I quite like who, you know, in the past they released a few albums and now they release like 2 or 3 EPs over a year and a half or whatever, but like each EP is its own like a slight variation of their genre, so they kind of clump them together a bit more. Is that the sort of thing that you're gonna sort of aspire to, or have you just, obviously you've only just released music, so I don't want to make you think that you need to start releasing loads more, but
yeah, I'm very interested in consistently putting out music. I'm not a big fan of singles personally. I enjoy putting out batches of works of art, so that people can draw the connections between them. It just gives you space to tell a bigger story. So singles are totally fine, but I don't see that being in my future. What I'm going to try to keep doing is 1 EP per year for as long as I can, because if I am going to continue practice songwriting and consistently shooting for that like 40 songs a year sort of mark, then choosing the best 6 should not be hard.
That's a good way of putting it. And then also you can, some of the songs that you may not use, you may want to sort of take out parts and rework into future releases as well, so it can all kind of work in that sense as well. So that's a really good idea. I'd also agree with the I mean, I like hearing the odd single, but you know, on Spotify occasionally I listen to a single and I go, this guy's great, you know, and then you go on their sort of their music, and it's like, oh, they've got 5 singles out, and then you listen to them all, and they're all really good, but they don't fit together in the same way. And I do like it. Like, one of the things I love is there's a couple of bands I like which have like a whole album, and the end of the song starts with the start of the song, sort of thing, and they all kind of run into one gigantic song. I love it. I love it when artists do that. So that's really cool. Well, on the subject of Spotify, what is your opinion? Obviously, we're in the generation. If you don't mind me asking, what sort of age are you? You don't have to give an exact amount, but
I'm 26.
I'm 26. I'm 24. So that's cool. We're pretty similar age. So like, I did have CDs when I was younger and whatnot, but now I resisted Spotify for quite a while because I was like, I do like supporting the artist. I like buying the CD and that sort of thing. But then the CDs went up in price more and more, and it became like, 10, 15 pounds over here for like a CD, or on iTunes it was like £8. Whereas Spotify for us is like £10 for the whole month, and it's immediate, unlimited straight away. And I feel bad. I do try and buy like band merch to kind of, even out a bit and go to as many live shows as I can. But what's your sort of opinion on the streaming music? Do you think it's more of it's killing the music industry, or do you think it's giving a platform and rebirth to more independent music, or a mix? What's your sort of views on it?
Yeah, I'm quickly looking up what the pound is. So the pound is $1.30 currently. So you're saying that like an album was costing you like £8, so it'd be like $10.50 US. Is that okay? Great. Just man, I need to really understand exchange rates real quick so I can answer this question. I think that music is getting a good pendulum shift on the world stage, where before everybody was paying more than they needed to bands that didn't necessarily need that money.
Yeah.
So like the Eagles didn't need you to buy their greatest hits album, not you personally. There's plenty of people who are going to buy that. But like a lot of the up and coming artists, they do need you to buy that because that like directly affects their pocketbook.
Yeah.
So that's it. I think that music was overvalued, and because of that, a few people at the top were able to like really capitalize on it. And now that we're realizing how much music is out there in the world, and now that it's easier to record music, we're realizing like, okay, like not all music is going to be worth my money. And then we have to decide individually which artists we actually do want to support financially. And that's why a lot of artists now have Patreon pages. That's why a lot of artists do GoFundMe accounts. That's why a lot of artists have to do side businesses, because they need to fund their work themselves. So I just think there's a lot more personal responsibility and personal fundraising that's going to need to go on in this day and age, because even if someone does land a record deal, a lot of the times those deals aren't. It's not a charity situation where you just get your album paid for and it's good. It's like you go into a little bit of debt and then you have to repay. Repay what was given to you. So I try not to have a real judgment about Spotify being good or bad, because what matters is that that's the state of the world we're living in and will continue to live in. So how I adjust to it is like making the best music that I can. I do still believe that good musicians are going to find their niche, and it's just going to take them a bit more work. So like, although I'm not like the number one trap rap artist in the world right now, which is like making a ton of money, and I'm not in hip hop, which is also making a ton of money.
Yeah.
I am running into people in their 40s, 50s, some in their 20s who are really into my music and do want to pay monthly just so that I can continue this career.
Yeah.
yeah, so that like forcing move of like me needing to find a niche and dig deeper into that niche, I think is crucial.
Yeah, man, and that's a good way of looking at it. It's very much so. I look at most things in life as a sort of grey area where it's not. There's very few things I think are very black and white, just a full on yes or a full on no for it. And I think finding the middle ground is the ideal. And your sort of perspective on Spotify is that middle ground. It's like, well, it's good because it's got a lot of independent artists, but it's bad because obviously people don't get paid as much. But it just means people have to kind of try harder. And even if none of that made any difference, it's still, well, even if I hated Spotify, I still have to use it to get my music out there. So I'm just going to kind of crack on and get my music out there, so that's a good not only work ethic but way of looking at it. Out of interest, while we're speaking about music and things, what sort of, you said we've kind of danced around the idea of what sort of music you do like, but let's say, what music are you really not into? You don't have to say like specific artists that you want to slag off, but like out of interest, what sort of, you can if you want. I'm really not a fan. I'm really not a fan of things like Little Pump or
Yes.
That sort of thing. I think music is in like art in the way that if you're doing something different, or if it makes you feel, or if you have to have a lot of skill to do it, then it should be appreciated. But when there's like no skill, no feeling, and literally anyone can do it, which is how I feel about a lot of the mumble rappers, I'm just like, nah, that's not really my thing. I mean, I like a lot of rap music, I like metal, I like pretty much every genre, bits and pieces of it. But what's your sort of, what things do you love? I mean, especially being a musician, you must have some good insight into this.
Yeah. So I too have my issues with mumble rap, but more so just a lot of the trap music in general right now. I just don't think I'm a fan of that triplet sound, the like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4
Yeah.
1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4, and it's like I just don't like that rhythm. And I'm much more fan of something that's a little bit more laid back, which might make me old school, but that's totally fine. That's my taste.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And then I would also say anything that screams the whole time. I'm a fan of screaming, but also when it's next to pretty voices. So like Alexis on Fire is a band that I was into, and that did a really good mix of the two of them.
Yeah, I agree with you there totally. I mean, I do like certain music which does air more on the heavy side, but there is certain music which, even the really, really heavy stuff I like, generally it's got very melodic guitars or like orchestral sounds behind it or things like that, whereas you get a lot of the genre, for people who are listening if they're not aware of it, there's a genre called deathcore, and there's another genre which is a bit more like it as well in a sense, which is black metal, and those two, I dislike those two genres, apart from about maybe 10 or 15 songs in total. I dislike those genres more than almost anything in the pop charts, because they're the kind of things which is like, if you can scream and you can sing and you can add it together, like the screaming can really enhance some of the singing and vice versa, that sort of thing. But when it's just all blast beat drums, and then the guitaring is just like, and then someone just yelling over the whole thing, it's just like, there's no melody to this. I can't bob my head to it. I can't sing. There's nothing. It's not musical to appreciate. It's just noise, and that's so. It's good to know that you. I find that a lot of people, especially when they are musicians themselves, generally like a lot more music. They kind of appreciate a lot of it. Even a lot of the time, if it's not necessarily your kind of thing, it's still like, I dig pretty much all of this.
Right. Yeah. I'm also a big fan of Lights. She's a Canadian pop band.
Yes, I've heard her some of music. Yeah, she's done a couple of songs with Bring Me the Horizon, and I've heard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she also. Oh no, she didn't marry him. She married
the guy from Bless the Fall, I think it was.
Bless the Fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her songs with Bring Me the Horizon are amazing.
Yes. Don't Go is one of my favorite Bring Me tracks.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah. That song is so good. But like she's also, so like Bless the Fall is also a more screaming band, and they did she has a song off of one of her albums, off of her Siberia album. It was called 40 Days, and no, it was called And Counting, and Bless the Fall had a song called 40 Days, and they were one cohesive sort of message, which is like what like how the two of them would count down the days until they got to see each other again.
Right.
And it was this like beautiful, like hers was like kind of a lullaby, and it would say like, when I fall asleep I feel you with me, and like his was this really gnarly screaming one with like just the double kick like the whole time, and it was amazing. Like,
Yep.
oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like singers crossing over genres, because it really adds. Yeah,
I definitely dig that. It's like one of my favorite things is when you get a more heavier band who've got like a male vocalist, and then a female singer comes in, and they sing together. Like there's a Five Finger Death Punch song with a singer of a band in this moment, and it's called I can't remember exactly what it's called. Annoyingly, it's gone out of my head, but it's on their Heaven and Hell album, Volume 1, I think it is. And it's just when you get the two duet sort of things, I love it. And yeah, I totally agree with you there. Lights has got a phenomenal voice, and Best of Four, a really cool band too. I was going to say, talk about mixing genres. Have you ever heard of the rapper Tech Nine?
Tech Nine. I believe I have.
You should give him anyone who's listening should as well. He's a really interesting rapper. Some of his newer stuff I don't think is quite as good, but he's got a song with the singer of Slipknot, the singer of System of a Down,
Cool.
The Doors, Deftones, and there's loads of other artists as well. He just multi-genre. He just does songs in all kinds of things. So I wanted to flag that up. Just say you should, if you like a different mixing and genres and stuff, then he's known for being quite renowned in that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's we could probably talk about music for another hour. I imagine if you're into like Lights and also Blessed of all that sort of thing, I'm sure we could talk about that for ages. But I know your time is a little bit limited, so I'll ring that back a little bit. I've got just a couple more things to ask you. Out of interest, what's your sort of pursuits non-musically? Out of interest, like if you got anything else on the side, or is music your full 100% thing?
Music is it's funny because technically nothing is your 100% thing other than living itself. But so I'm married here in Santa Barbara. So I've been married for almost 2 years, and so I spend a lot of time with my wife, checking in with her. She also has her own career, and I'm deeply involved with making sure that she's having a good life. So that's a large portion of my time as well. And then I also try to make room for like a lot of friends, like making sure that I'm still connecting with people who are less impressed with me as a musician and more impressed with me as a person, because that seems to be where people start to lose their way, is when they start to lose their friends. So I'm trying to do my best to keep really grounded and really connected with my friends here as well. They're just they care about how I'm doing as a person, less so about my career, and that to me is really valuable. It's like, it sounds insulting, but it's actually really valuable, because they would prefer my career fail than I lose my way, and I think that's a really important thing to keep in your back pocket, is a group of people who can remind you who you are.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you there. It's like, it's similar in a certain way. I mean, my podcasting takes up a certain amount of hours a week, takes up a certain amount of time to go out and do things. And I do have to make sure I get that balance of, don't just go to my 9-to-5 daytime job and then come home and just sort out podcasting things and isolate myself, because not only will then the quality of the podcast decline, if I want to look at it like that, because you need breathing room and space and other people to talk to, especially with me when talking and things, but like with songwriting, if you just lock yourself away and don't interact with anyone, eventually I wouldn't quite say that you run out of things to write about, but the inspiration is much easier to be hit with when you're experiencing life in all kinds of facets. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. And that's a really healthy way of looking at it. Okay, so here's a question I've asked a couple of people before, and then it's getting quite close to the time, so I may have to let you go.
No problem.
But if someone just gave you, say, $2 million and just said, you can't buy like property and be like really reasonable with it and live off the rent. You can't. If I just gave you $2 million, sort of, what would you sort of do with it? Like, some people have said start communities, some people have said music studios, these sort of things. I'd just be interested in what would you do? Just $2 million right now. How would you spend it?
$2 million. I'm not allowed to spend it on rent. I'm not allowed to invest it in like a low stakes.
Yeah, you can't just you can't do the safe option essentially.
Okay, there are no safe options. You have to actually invest it in something currently.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, whether it's want to be a creation or project of your own or anything like that. Like, what would you do with it?
Yeah, I would start. I'd probably do some singing lessons. That's one of the things that always costs more than I'm willing to pay. But I think it's very important for everybody to be continually improving their voices. I would. Oh geez, what else would I do? I'm always kind of low on equipment. Like there are so many things that people tell me. Like I just put on this show, and I basically bring my entire inside of my house to a venue so that I can make it look really homey, so that I have all my recording equipment there. I would love it. Yeah. I would love it if that could be all separate.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I try to run as low cost of an operation as humanly possible. So like my bag that carries all of my microphone stands and speaker stands, it's just a towel. It's like an old towel that I no longer used, and then like that I sewed together, and then I found a golf strap like outside my house one day on the street and was like, great, here's a golf strap.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right. And it totally works. But there are so many things like that where I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool to have like an actual large area rug that could distinguish like, this is the place that the band is playing.
Yeah.
It'd be really cool to have lighting, and not just like the little lights that I have, but like real big cool lighting. Like a big LED screen behind me that I could program to play whatever I
open
need.
up so many options, wouldn't it? So many cool creative visualizations and things that could correspond with a lot of the stories that you've got sort of written out. That could really help with making the, I'm sure, already great performance even sort of bigger.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So probably that. Yeah, a lot of it has to do with me just like not having enough funds to chase all the things that I want to chase at the moment.
Yeah.
I would probably, I mean, I just came out with an EP, so I would probably wait like another few months, but then I would probably pay for me and the rare occasions to like go out on a lake somewhere at like someone's recording studio, and then we could just like do it, like put together an album within a week or two out there together, like pay for our vacation to
That'd be
do
awesome.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that I always see that in like some people will rent out a house and then record everything in there, and like the whole band will live there for a couple weeks while they make it, and I just think that would be the coolest scenario, and everybody would be racking their brain consistently about how do we bond together, how do we make this better as a record.
Yeah, you get sort of being outside in nature and kind of cutting off from sort of the more toxic things when it comes to technology, not only the pollution and noise pollution and things, but all the busyness of people, but also you get to just sit out there with nature. The air is cleaner, everything is in this nice calm balance and things, and it can really help you disconnect and unwind a bit, which is perfect when you want to sort of flow in the most pure way creatively. So that's a really cool thing as well. Is there much more you'd want to add with your 2 million? I assume like you'd want to have like a touring stuff as well.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good call. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the car situation for touring. So if anybody out there has a car they want to donate that's bigger than my Toyota Corolla, hit me up.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things with music today that is quite upsetting. Where obviously, even though everyone does have a platform and everyone can sort of record at home, it's really that once you kind of get the foot off the ground, you still have to keep on going. You know, every tour is its own costs, and as you said, if you get signed to a label, you then owe sort of them money and things as well. And there's a few bands that I know of, some in the alternative scene, and one is called The Defiled, and they're a really good band, but they never quite broke it huge. They just did a lot of supporting shows, and then it must have just dried up for like a little bit of time when they hadn't released an album in like a year and a half. It was just before Spotify really got huge. It's just on the cusp of that, and they had to stop being a band because they just couldn't afford to keep going. Jeez, and there's a band I like called Arcane Roots, and the same things happen to them, and I love Arcane Roots, but like it's a very costly endeavor. So it's like I almost wish I was just like a multi-billionaire and I could just go to all these talented people and say, here you go, have just loads of money and you can just do what do what you want with it. It'd be lovely, but I do not have that kind of dollar, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think when I hear stories like that, it really comes down to understanding what are your means and how do we work within our means as artists. So I personally, like, I'm running a business. I'm running a music business. Yeah. And if I spend more than I make, the business will die. So I need to be working enough so that I can pay the people that I need to pay so that I can do the things that I need to do. And I take that, I understand that as like business savvy. And having business savvy, I think, is the biggest thing that artists need to learn how to do in this day and age, because otherwise you are not going to be able to keep doing your art. And the world needs your art, so you need to learn business as an artist.
Yeah, I agree. That's a very good way of looking at it. Well, it's nearing the end of the sort of podcast now, as I know you're a busy guy. So just before we sort of switch off, I'll include links and things to the to all your music and whatnot below, and all your social media and whatnot. What is there one sort of final thing you'd like to say to just anyone listening, a sort of final message?
To anyone listening, you probably have a cooler accent than I do, so congrats to you for that. I hope you get to listen to the album. It's called The Choices of John Still, and it follows the story of this man who can sort of see into the future and understands that he's never going to get to be with the woman he wants to be with. So he uses this potion to get her to marry him. And as that potion wears off, we find him in the first song. So you'll continue to see his influences, his family members, his friends in the following songs. And I hope it impacts you. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it makes you think.
That's wonderful. That's great. And yeah, I've just listened to it quite a lot over the last couple of days. And as I say, I think it's brilliant. It's especially for the genre. It is. In a market that is saturated, this is definitely one that does stand out. So I wholeheartedly recommend everyone to go check that out. And
awesome.
Yeah, Connor, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for reaching out and coming on. And, maybe in the future when you've got some more releases, we can do this again.
Yeah, man. I would love that.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time.
No problem at all, man. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's the end of the episode. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. Coming up, I've got a nature episode recorded with my mate Alex. I've got a streetwear episode, especially regarding Supreme clothing, with my mate Brandon. And then I've got a couple more that I should be recording in the next week. So yeah, there's not fully sure which one I'm going to release yet. It probably won't be the one with Alex about nature, because if you guys are regular listeners, you'll know that the one a couple of weeks ago was with Belinda, and that was all about sort of nature. So trying to spread it out a little bit. I may be doing another Science But Simple with Josh soon, so any of the fans of the mini series, that's coming back as well. Well, it wasn't really gone, but I've been a bit busy recording with other people. That's about it, really, apart from, follow us on all the usual social media places, subscribe in the podcast app and that sort of thing. Also, this episode, I forgot to mention, was actually recorded over Skype, and I think it sounded pretty damn good. It didn't even, once I put the audio together from each end, I found it didn't even really sound like it was done from over Skype. You couldn't even tell a lot of parts, I thought. But I don't know, maybe I'm biased. But yeah, if you want to follow us on any of the social media places, Instagram's probably the best one. There's a bit more details to certain posts in there. I post other content as well, like other podcasts and music and movies and vague things I get up to if it's exciting at all. So there's also snippets on there of certain episodes. There will be of this one as well. So it's just like, like if you're kind of unsure on an episode, you can just jump on there and just listen to a 30-second snippet, see if that's piques your interest. The only other thing I was going to say was Genuine Chit-Chat's been going on for a year now. So it's been loads of fun so far. I'm going to keep on doing it. And I was contemplating setting up a Patreon page. I didn't know if anyone would be interested in that. I was thinking about releasing a fortnightly podcast about my ramblings and thoughts about things. I think it would include like movie reviews and stuff, because I go to the cinema semi-regularly, 2 to 4 times a month, depending what's on. So there's quite a few new films I could talk about. There's just various music I'm into, or like recommendations. Just a few other thoughts on things that's going on at the moment, as well as maybe a couple of podcasts I've been listening to. I don't know. If anyone would be interested in that, let me know on any of the usual social media things. Yeah, I'll probably going to end up launching it, maybe, I guess, in the next few months. I'll figure it out, see what any people's interest is. So, yeah. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys, as always, especially listening right to the very end. And I'll see you guys next week with whichever episode I decide to release. Thanks, guys.